Welcome. Ziggy1X here with another NieR reincarnation video. And I wanted to wrap up this series on Memoirs with a part 3 here. In brief recap, we went through in the first video the way to prioritize and the way to farm efficiently and some of the resources that were available for farming Memoirs and just how to best fit your team and your loadout. In the second video, we talked a little bit about the use of them in loadouts such as Arena. And in this third video, I'm going to go over the final step, and it is the most irritating step of Memoir farming, and that is what happens when you have too many Memoirs. When it comes around to these farming activities, we usually farm a lot of Memoirs, even when we're auto-deleting them. So I'm going to go through a few tips and tricks that I like to use to isolate the ones that are automatically going to be deleted and to prioritize the ones that I want to keep. So first off, I'm going to start with a correction. And we are here at the NieR Rain website resource. And these two sets down at the bottom, a chance for conflict and a future retrospective, I made a mistake in my first video. What I said is that the attack was up by 30% for 60 seconds and the defense was down by 30% for 50 seconds. This is not correct. It's attack up, period. And then the defense is down for 60 seconds and then vice versa on the other one. So this is actually a permanent 30% stat bump. So that means it's not a timed stat bump, which means it's not quite as powerful, but it's something that you can take through a flat 30% attack. Very useful. Now, remember, this is multiplying off of your unit's base attack. So your unit will benefit from awakenings in a big way from this. You'll also benefit from the mythic slab, but also pay attention that it will not be benefiting off of equipped weapons and Memoirs and things like that. It also won't be benefiting off of any secondary passives in your costume or character's kit that bump its attack up. So just be aware of that. That is how the multiplier applies. So that being said, and that correction being issued, let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, here we are. So you'll notice here in my gift box, I've got 11 pages just full of Memoirs. I've got a lot of Memoirs right now. If I go over here to my list and sell, and then I go over my Memoirs, you will see I have down at the bottom left there, you can see with my little mouse pointer, 999 Memoirs. So this is something that is a tremendous irritant to most of us in the farming community who really are diving in and looking for more Memoirs. And it's something that in a large way turns people off to farming Memoirs because then they have to dive into this and deal with the sorting process. So let's start with the basics here. If we go to our sort, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we are setting in our battle settings. And actually, maybe I'll just do that first. So hang tight here. If we go to our subquests and then we go to our battle here. Now, what you can do in this settings, and you'll see my mouse pointer right here on the settings. If you click on this guy, what it'll have there at the top is an auto sell feature. Automatically sell obtained items from quests. So yes. Memoir sale settings, and I've got 1, 2, and 3 stars set to sell. Doesn't matter how many substat numbers there are. I just do not want 3-star and lower Memoirs. All I'm interested in is 4-star Memoirs. So that is how you set that, as well as a few other features within your battle and repeat settings. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump back to the list and sell here. And let's sort through and burn away some of these Memoirs. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my sell up here so that the game knows that I'm ready to sell my Memoirs. And then I'm going to go to my sort. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to go over here and I want to select my primary abilities, HP, attack, and defense add. I'm not interested personally. This, again, user mileage may vary based on your account. Maybe your best Memoir you have is a flat attack stat because it's got great secondary passives. Don't turn those down when you're starting to get into the game or when you're still new to the Memoir farming. You want to make sure that you've got good substats, okay? So be warned. This is just personally for me. So I'm going to personally select these 3 stats, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now what it's doing is it's just showing me the memoirs that have primary stats from all sets that have a flat stat increase. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to auto select, and you can see in my auto select settings I have all memoirs selected, okay? And then I'm just going to click sell. So that immediately gets rid of all the flat stats that I just don't need. It only took about 40 memoirs off for me, so yeah, all right. I've already gotten rid of a lot of those. So let's go ahead and dive into more. Let's go back to my sort. So now what do I want to do? Well, I'm only interested in, for my arena teams, I'm really interested in crit rate for the Blighted Flowers set. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select crit rate. I'm going to go down here and I'm interested in primarily, let's go ahead and take off these stats, crit rate, crit damage. Let's do attack, okay? And let's just do agility, just for kicks and giggles. Let's see what we get here. Check that box. So I don't have any new ones that fit that criteria. So now I can start expanding outwards from that. So let's go over here. Let's go ahead and deselect agility, since that is going to be my less desirable. Okay, one not new one that I just hadn't locked, okay? Now let's go back over here to my sort. And let's deselect attack. Let's see what we get. So we have 2 new memoirs here. So let's take a look at these guys real quickly here. We have flat HP and defense, but we have a pretty even crit rate and crit damage. That one's a little on the lower side. I'm not a big fan of that one. But you know what I'm going to do, since I've got a lot of gold? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enhance those. So we'll just do a real quick enhancement here. Multi-enhance. Let's just see where it goes. Yeah, this guy didn't actually go anywhere. So my crit rate and crit damage didn't change at all. The only thing that changed was my defense and HP. So for me, this is actually a dud of a memoir, which is really disappointing. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that one out. It's unfortunate when you fully upgrade something, but you know, it happens. So let's see what happens, because again, even if it is starting a little bit lower, you never quite know if it's just going to dump all of its stats into all of its upgrades into crit rate, for example. So let's see where this one landed. Crit damage at 20%. That's actually really good. Even though its crit rate is lower and it only has flat attack and flat defense, I'm kind of glad I didn't throw this one away, because 20% crit damage is 20% crit damage. So that's very useful. So I'm going to jump back over here. I am going to actually bookmark this one. I'm going to lock it, and we're going to move on from there. So let's go ahead and let's move on from that. Let's take a look at another stat, another primary stat here. Let's go for flat attack. Let's keep it with the Blighted Flower set, since I'm really focusing right now on my arena. And then let's aim for the perfect memoir. So I'm going to be going for crit rate, crit damage, attack percent, and let's just say agility, okay? None, okay? That's something I've come to expect. So let's go ahead and remove the least desirable ability, which is agility, at least in the case for the team that I'm building right now. And looks like we have 2 that are not bookmarked. Defense attack, that's a good one, so I'm going to bookmark that. And let's take a look at this one. Yeah, bookmark that as well. That's a good one. So let's take a look at these 2 new ones real quickly. This is pretty good. Let's take a look at this next one. Yeah, this could be good. All right, so let's go ahead and enhance both of these guys. All right, this is really exciting, guys. But this is unfortunately a part of the organizing. And I wish there was a easier way to sort through these guys. Oh, this one's looking good. Oh, this one's looking really good. Ooh, where's that gonna land? Okay, so the last bump dumped into the flat HP. Not as desirable, but hey, that is a really good memoir. So that's something that I may actually look into using for my team. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm basically looking for those specialized memoirs. Now, another thing that I have just tentatively been planning for is a incoming, probably never going to happen defense meta. So what is something that you're looking for in, and I like planning ahead. I don't want a really good defense character to drop, for example, that surprises me and I don't have any memoirs ready for it, because the worst thing that could happen is a new change in direction for a costume could drop or a character could drop, and then you just don't have the right memoirs to support it. So what is a defensive character looking for? Well, primarily a defensive character is going to be looking for, let's just say, main stat defense. Okay, now granted, if it is a defense attacking character scaling its damage off of defense, you're going to want crit rate as well. But let's just look at defense here to start with. So defense percent, and then we're going to want defense percent in the substats, crit rate and crit damage, and actually attack, because defense scaling attackers scale off of both defense and attack. They primarily scale off defense, but they secondarily scale off of attack. So this would be a perfect memoir for a defense attacker. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. Oh, by the way, we're going to select all sets. All right, because I'm just interested to see what I've got that fits that criteria. Okay, we've got 3. Interesting. So let's see what we got here. Not bad. Very, very good. So this would be a really interesting memoir for, that's very good too. Wow. Not as good. So this one really interests me because it has a 6% and a 5%. And wow, okay, let's just do this real quickly and see what happens. So a lot of it is understanding exactly what you need and maybe a little bit of planning ahead. Even if you don't have, for example, Bloody Griff or New Year's 063Y or Moga Joe, as I like to call him, then you can still plan ahead for having those characters. You can start building memoirs that focus heavily on HP. Since HP is a more beneficial stat to making your character tankier than defense is. And so you want to focus more on the HP and then secondarily on the defense. So let's see what we got here. Crit damage 10, crit rate 10, defense 3, defense 20. This is a absolutely beautiful memoir for a character that would scale off of defense as an attacker. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. These are the thoughts that are going through my head when I'm sorting through these memoirs. I want to see, maybe I want to try and experiment with new things. Maybe, for example, when I'm in the tower next time it comes around, what are some of the things I'm looking for? I'm looking for memoirs, like the one that comes out of the magic dungeon that came with Saryu and Priyet. That one gives your entire party a AoE HP plus 10%. So if you equip a memoir set of those on each of your characters, that's an AoE 30% for your entire party. That's powerful. So then what do you do with that memoir set? Well, you want to make your party as tanky as possible. So maybe your primary stat on every single one of them is HP. Secondary stat, HP. Crit rate maybe, or defense. You want to make them as beefy as possible, because what you're doing is you're not dealing damage with their attacks, you're dealing damage with poison and burn. And so you can, depending on where you're struggling in the game or depending on where you really want to put your focus, you can customize, you can tailor, and you can do it one step at a time. This is the thing about this. Your inventory is going to hold these memoirs for a while. You need to eventually get to it. It's not going to sit there forever, but you can every day, you have an idea for what you want to do. Maybe today my idea is I want to focus on the arena. So I'm going to go to my Blighted Flowers set, or maybe my the one that gives you the HP plus 25% set for a Griff, or maybe the other one that gives you a temporary or a permanent defense boost. There's different ways to go about doing this, and depending on the philosophy you're adopting, you can use these filters, which have been pretty recently introduced, and do some really great things with this. So now that we've gotten this guy upgraded, that is an amazing defense-focused memoir. So I'm not going to bother with that part of it, but what I will say is now let's go ahead and focus on the memoirs I want to trash as the last step. This video is a bit of a long video, and I knew it would be because this is a rather involved process. So for those of you who have borne with me up to this point, I thank you for your patience. Okay, so let's look at a very not desirable memoir. So let's look at defense primary stat, and then let's go ahead and perfect match the 3 substats that we don't want and then maybe agility, okay? Let's see if there's anything like that. Not really worth going after. Okay, so we have a few of those. So these are not desirable. They just don't do anything for you because they've got all flat stats. Defense is one of the least desirable primary stats unless you're building a character that scales damage off of defense, which we really don't have anything that's relevant like that yet in the game. So let's just get rid of these. That's an easy trash, okay? So let's go ahead and look at another one. Okay, so we got a lot that fall into that category. And you'll see here there really isn't a whole lot to be desired from these. And I'm not interested if I'm going for, the reason why I'm being a little less discriminating with these is because if I'm going to be building specifically a defense focused character that deals damage off of defense, I'm looking for 4 stats and 4 stats only. Crit damage, crit rate, attack, and defense as the substats with a primary stat as defense, which means that every single one of these, I don't even really have to look at them. I mean, I can look at them, but I know they're going to be garbage. Auto select, get rid of them. Sure, why not? All right, that takes us below 900. And so you can see, we can just kind of start going through and you can look at these filters. Remember, there is a difference between the secondary abilities. There's the perfect match, or there's the all, or neither. So go through, plan ahead. So what are you going to be wanting from a memoir? If it's a straight up attacker that's outside of the arena, you're going to want your crit rate, crit damage, agility, like I talked about in the last one. You're going to want your attack, and you're going to want substats. And almost every single one of those memoirs, you're going to want crit rate and crit damage on each of those memoirs, because the secondary abilities are essential to flushing out the character and flushing them all the way up to 100% crit rate, and then getting as high on the crit damage and the attack as possible. In the arena, it's going to be a little different depending on your team. In the next video, I would like to dive a little bit into how different ways you can approach arena. There's a lot of great teams out there and a lot of great strategies, a lot of great ways of predicting who you're going to be going against. It's not foolproof. I was practicing a little bit with some of my theories today, and I was running into some bait teams that tripped me up, and you know who you are if you beat me, so you got me. But this is the philosophy you want to use moving forward. So what are you looking for? Defense is niche, so leave that to the side. Arena is not niche. And then there's just the general viability of, let's just say, anything crit rate. Crit rate being the primary. So let's go over here. This will be for your general dungeons, for example. This doesn't have to be limited to a specific set. I'm a big fan of not limiting yourself to a specific set outside of arena. So let's just look at our crit rate memoirs. For that, you want crit rate, crit damage, attack, and let's just say HP. That's going to be your perfect, essentially, dungeon farming memoir. I've got 2 new ones that fit that perfectly. Okay, so this is a memoir that I'm going to build for just possibly, yeah, I would probably build this one up for my regular dungeon farming, for my regular content PvE farming. So hopefully this helped you out a little bit with how you go through and sort things. It's the best strategy is to have a plan in mind, just to reiterate, and to just chip away at it. Take one philosophy at a time. You take, well, I'm going to focus on crit rate today for my memoirs. So you go in there and you find those perfect memoirs. If there's a specific set you're looking for, go ahead and select the set, filter it out so that you can see what you have. And then that gives you an idea of what you need to be diving back into the dungeons to find. And then once you start looking for maybe agility as a main stat, or you start looking for attack as a main stat, maybe you're focusing like I am right now on a set that's on a specific set, then you're going to be focusing on that dungeon, and pretty much that dungeon to the exclusion of everything else. You're going to be looking for a specific set or a stat lineup, and then everything else is just going to be very easy to throw away. So my suggestion on moving forward with this is before you start any kind of serious farming, go through your memoirs and get rid of all the fluff. Really, really trim the fat on those suckers. And then when you go into those dungeons to start farming those memoirs, You have the idea in your head of exactly what you need, the specific memoir set, for example, that you're looking for. You can pretty much by default get rid of almost everything else unless it's really good for PvE. And then you can dive in and you can just start looking for precisely what you're looking for. So I hope this was a helpful guide. This is going to be the last part of my Memoirs guide. This is really a sort of a deep dive into the tools that we have at our disposal at this point in time in the game. And I hope that you guys can use this to your benefit, that maybe it'll take away a little bit of the frustration surrounding Memoirs, as this is by far the most frustrating part of the game. And sometimes just learning a few tips and tricks, just how to look for things. That makes such a big difference, and it pushes you over the edge and turns it from a chore into an enjoyment, because now it's an exploration. Now you're actually looking for that perfect memoir. And so I hope you all find those, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, y'all. Have a good one.